So hello, everyone. This is International Peace Day, celebrated every year on the 21st of September. And today I'm very honored to have Shiloh Sophia, a guest with us. She really is an artist, and we need more artists to bring the colors in when we talk about peace and how can we contribute to this big vision. And she is part of really what is building up as an international movement for intentional creativity. And thank you so much for making time to be with us today, Shiloh.
I'm so thrilled to be with you and with all of you. Thank you so much for caring about peace and women and the future of our planet and our species, and for being interested in the role that creativity has with that, which is it's impossible to separate creativity from peace in the future. So I'm so grateful to be here as a, artist representing how we image creativity, and that it's not just for those who are painters or illustrators or who think that they have talent or not. Creativity is everything that we do every day. It's how our species has survived to this time. This is evidenced in archaeology. And so I just want everyone who's tuning in to realize that you are all creative, and it doesn't have a lot to do with talent. It has everything to do with just who you are and letting it be expressed. So let us bring that to the piece today.
And I would like to dedicate this session and this week on this International Peace Day to the innocent people suffering from war in Ukraine. And I honor the fact that you have Ukrainian roots, Sophia, and you can bring that wisdom and feeling embodied of we can open up our hearts to feel more that is wrong, what is happening in the world. And there are 32 active conflicts, like hot war zones in the world today. And already Ukraine is not taking any more space in the news. So we get to really numb ourselves from feeling the pain and feeling disempowered, take any action against it. And it's true that individually, none of us is so powerful as to say no, but collectively, my faith as a peace worker is that if more of us from more fields of expertise and more women would use that dark goddess energy of Kali, start saying no, and to bring these values that are supportive of life, then we have a chance to shift things and to really co-create together a more beautiful vision where war is history.
I love that idea. And I also wish to honor Ukraine. My ancestors are from there, but we also have families still living in Lviv. And so it's definitely a part of my history. And when I researched the ancient goddess temples of the Cucuteni Tripoli era, I did this interesting thing where I looked at this largest mega temple, and then I mapped using map on my phone, how long would it take from my family's home to walk to the temple if perhaps we had been there thousands of years ago. And it was only an hour and a half walk. So it's like one of those things where the imagination and the root systems start to work, because I think, how could I have not been there, or my family in some way? So looking at the art of the ancestors all along the Carpathian Mountains, I think it's such a really important thing for all of us, not just people interested in, like where we are now, because old Europe is different than new Europe. And the artwork is the evidence of who we were as a people, that we were a matriarchal and peaceful culture, and that there are no weapons at a certain point in the strata. And so and then my haplogroup only starts after that conquest of that area. And so it's so stirring to have this happening again, right in the same area, because the conquestors came in through the Russian steppes, what we call. And so to speak to peace now, and to speak to it from the perspective of the artwork, it's only because of the archeomythology that has been found specifically with the Cucuteni Tripoli area, that we can see that we were peaceful. We can see that we were matriarchal. We can also see the symbols that are active from the time we began migrating out of Africa, which my family started migrating 80,000 years ago. And so when you look at that artwork from Africa, and then you look at the Eastern European artwork now, and then you look at Native American artwork in the United States and Aboriginal artwork in Australia, you can actually see the patterns of the triangles and the spirals in the women's bodies. And so that art is the record of who we were and also exists inside of our ancestral memory and our DNA to this day. So I call upon those images and those ideas and those ancestors that I know factor largely into the work that you are doing, and that the imagery and the stories and the connections with the blood and the mysteries and the red thread are woven between us. We are one people here together in a place of calling peace within ourselves, each person individually, not as a way to spiritually bypass the realities, but as a way to cultivate it within ourselves so that we then can be peace workers who find peace within ourselves. And creativity is one of the ways to cultivate peace from within.
Oh, I wanted very briefly to link up with that and say actually, if we look at history, the age of domination is relatively young compared to the largest part of our existence as a species on the planet, where it was actually partnership between sexes with nature. And that's why it's really important to connect to those cultural roots, because it's very little known. This amazing culture we have had in Romania and Ukraine is very little known outside the archaeology community right now. And in my work in peace, I realized there's a lot of resistance from people to imagine creative possibilities of peace on earth, because they say, oh, it's always like that. It's human nature, and it's actually not human nature, which is why the Red Manifesto, which is our pretext in a way to open a conversation and to link with peace, is this red book for women we would like to bring out as a resource for practice that is entirely inspired by Coucoutin Tripolier art. Just want to show you the labyrinth of the goddess. He said to start. This is from one of those images of the great goddess. To bring that in, and with a lot of mandalas that are 7,000 to 5,000 years old, just to bring a context where women can tune into themselves and into that old knowledge we have inside of us. So this is our peace manifesto from the world, and that's why I think it's really important. Again, just because right now Ukraine already is losing interest from people. Oh, the war is going on for so long, it's already not news anymore. And there's not even enough critical thinking about how another country and another people is being sacrificed on international political interest. Really, it's not, no war is fought for the benefit of the people. So if we take that critical thinking and bring a little bit of our intentional imagination and creativity, I'm very honored to have you share a bit more of this intentional creativity medicine that you're putting out into the world.
Thank you so much. I want to just say that we call what we do at our community is called MUSEA, and it means many museums or many muses. So it's this idea of the multiplicity, and that wherever we are, there is a musea, but it's this idea of the plural and seeing ourselves as individual and also in the collective. The idea that we hold of what we call intentional creativity is like pointing to something, like saying, this is air. It's like, pay attention to this air. You can't see it, but it's here and it makes your life possible. Intentional creativity is like pointing to air. It's almost impossible to describe, and yet it's everything. It is every way that humans have ever interacted with the elements of creation to make art, to make children, to make food. Because when we are going to grow food, we design where we're going to put that food. That's art. When we're birthing with our babies, that's art. When we're planning the illustrations to put on the cave wall or to carve into the clay, that's art. None of our ancestors did any of that for no reason whatsoever. They did it with meaning and intentionality. And that intentional creativity is who we all were and who we still are. And we've just decided in our community to focus on it because we notice how much it changes our relationship with creativity when we begin to bring intention to it. And a simple example would be, say I'm going to paint a mountain, and I am going to look at the color of the mountain, the shape of the mountain, the time of day. I'm going to make some decisions about how to represent the mountain. I'm going to illustrate the mountain and then find a name for it. That's just the most normal way that you would paint a mountain. But if you were going to paint a mountain with intentional creativity, it's a whole different set of ideas. Is this the right day for me to paint the mountain? Is this the mountain? Why this mountain? How will I tune into the energy of this mountain? Am I listening? Is the mountain speaking to me, through me? Why am I called here? What does it feel like in my body to illustrate this? Is it important that it looks exactly how it looks, or can I bring interpretation to it, which forges my relationship with the mountain? And as I'm creating, I'm noticing, what am I shifting about my relationship to the mountain? How does it feel differently? Does this color look like a green gray, or does it actually feel like purple? Does it matter if it matches what it is? Is it about how it feels? And so as you're painting along, your relationship with the creation itself starts to change. And we know from quantum physics that every electron is observable and changes what it's doing while you're interacting with it. So we never know what it's doing when we're not looking. So I'll never know what the mountain was doing before I sat down with it and decided to paint it. And yet we know that because of observation and the observer effect, that there is this engagement with this being called the mountain. So it's that relationship that gets activated when we bring in the idea of intention and do more than just duplicate nature with skill. We actually forge relationships with creation through deep listening and deep relating. And in this, there's peace and there's beauty. And I also believe that all of our ancestors did this each in their own way, and that most of our people lost track of this way of creating when we were under conquest and on the move. And so it's interesting that as soon as we can begin to establish sense of place again, we bring back the arts almost immediately. But when we're on the run, we often cannot bring our materials with us. We lose track of the root system and the stories. And so we're reinventing in each new location, in each new situation, in each new era, in each new paradigm, in each new age. And we begin to forge new relationships with the place that we live in. And that's really intentional creativity, is about relationship with creation and responding through creativity.
Wow. And as you are talking, I know, and I follow you for many years now. I think it's 7. I love your work. I just realized right now you are the embodiment of a Kukutentri Polya goddess. You express your body, which I've always admired, like round and soft, and such a presence, such a poetry that comes through your wow.
Thank you. Yeah. When I look at the ancient images of the mother, it is exactly, I'm like a Venus. Naked is exactly what my body shape is, exactly the folds, and it's not the most common shape these days. So I have this ancient form, and my grandmother, my Ukrainian grandmother, she was 100% Ukrainian. Her family came over to the United States 100 years ago and established an Orthodox church, actually. And my body is exactly like her body.
Wow. So let's celebrate that. Women who look like goddesses in this culture that is obsessed with the skinny women. I always admire and tell women to love their bodies as goddesses when we meet them and we have them. And I want to say just one more thing regarding this polarized dualistic mindset we're in, that when we talk peace, peace is not the opposite of war. And think of
Yes.
you as an artist, peace is actually in this black and white thinking. It's either or, and who's going to win the fight. It's like bringing in all the colors to imagine infinite possibilities. And I love
Mhm.
how you connected with the fact that art is something that is in everything we are doing, in
Yes.
our ancestors were doing, in what we do every day. So if we could bring that element of art into our lives,
Mhm.
we also take our role as creators. To me, this is what your work is inviting to. When you have that power to just put anything, that all the beauty inside of you and the vision and the dreams in a white canvas, is like you take back your power to create from small things. And I think this is very inspiring for more women to do, because the type of power that is needed to say no to the status quo, they say, is more feminine power, but really embodied, soft,
Mhm.
and clear at the same time about the value.
Yeah, it is creative. It is a creative power, and we don't access it just through thinking about it. You must actually embody it. And I think that that's where we need to go next with our art and with our movement, is literally living the reality that we're creating in our bodies and in our consciousness, and then getting the nourishment that we need in order to go out and attend to suffering, as I know is one of your themes as well. It's in the US, not that popular of a theme, and yet it's unavoidable, and it's here. And so I say with the women that I train, that I'm training you so that you can be powerful enough to not have to turn away from suffering, that you know that you have something you can do. And that's part of what intentional creativity does for those of us who are healers and practitioners and shamankas, that we can actually bring, it's something to do in a time of suffering. So intentional creativity literally gives you something to do when someone is suffering, because you can say, let us move our bodies. Let us go to the page. Let us make this soup. Let us plant the seed. It actually is the go-to in times of trauma. And so that's also how we teach people about it, not just about self-expression. That is yes, but for those of us who serve others, it's the thing to do. And I think if we look around the world at peacemakers and artists, we're all already doing it. It's just we're calling it something so that we can pay attention to it. We're naming it so that we can take a look at it, and then to notice what's distinct about it. I do have a red thread with me. Is it okay if I talk about the red thread for a moment?
Yes, please.
Wonderful. I know that it factors so greatly into your work. And I first learned about it through Native American women. And so what I love about the symbol of the red thread is that it's across many, many different cultures all over the world. And for us in our community, we say it's the original umbilical cord, the thread back to what I call the goddess. I call her the ever emergent Ma. It's our umbilical cord to her. It's our blood and our moon system and cycles. It is also a sign of connection and a sign of protection. And when I first started working with the thread, it was pre-internet search. And so I had no way of knowing how widespread it is. And now there's hundreds of thousands of entries. And then the first time the internet came and I started searching, there was nothing. And now there's hundreds of thousands. So it's one of those things that's a paradigmatic phenomena. And it's also red, which is the red ochre, which is our original medium for art for all of our ancestors. And then the red ochre is red from the iron of exploding stars, which is the same reason our blood is red. So you can see this thread of information and red, and the thread runs all through our life. And this blood that we bleed each cycle is stardust from 13.8 billion years. And so to really connect with the idea of the red thread is to make this acknowledgement all the way to the beginning, what I call the cosmic orgasm instead of the Big Bang, that moment of happening. It's still happening now, that expansion, we're in it right now. That's the original red thread. And so this red thread was woven for me by one of my students many years ago, from her sheep, and there's a little bead on it. It's so sweet. I always keep it and don't use it for circle because it's mine for the virtual world. But I just wanted to, I know you all have different ideas about red thread, but I just want to share with you our 4 teachings of the red thread because it connects directly to what we're exploring here, and how women can use this who are coming into their moon cycle, who are midpoint in their cycle, and also those who are completing their menopause phase of the change. The red thread is still the blood in us. So in our community, we say you are already connected, because quite literally we are one family. I mean, I know that's hard for people to believe, but we are all related. And so the red thread says we're already connected. And so when you acknowledge this connection, you know, when Ina reached out to me, I was like, oh yeah, we're already connected. And we were just instantly connected, because you choose. Already connected is a choice to affirm the reality that we are already sisters, already connected. That's the first legend. The second legend is that you're called to the circle. So if you're here right now and you're witnessing with us, you're called here. We were called together through Luna Rossa, right? So when we acknowledge that call, then you show up in different ways and you do what you need to do, because we're saying we're supposed to be here and this is important. This is on my path. So if each one of you just acknowledges, however you found your way here, you are here and this is important to you. You're called to the circle. Affirm the call. The third legend is that each one of us has a piece of the red thread that is ours. Luna Rossa is your piece. My piece is intentional creativity, but it's not mine alone, and this is not yours alone. We're all sharing it together. So some of us have individual and collective threads. Those of us who are activists, peacekeepers, healers, educators, we have a thread that extends threads to others. So we are the weavers. And only you know if you have your thread, and if your thread is meant to be extended and woven with others. That's also a point of healing for many women on their journey, because we've all been through some pretty bizarre traumas in our life. When you recognize you have a piece to unfold in this great mystery that we are turning, this great wheel, when you know your piece and you start holding your piece long enough, like I painted for 15 years before I extended the virtual thread out to across the world. So I was really working my thread. I published my first book. I had led my first circles. I had my first art shows. I was clear on my thread. And then when healing is here, you extend your thread out. Not all of us, but those of us who, it's not just those of us who feel like we're educators and have things to share. It's like something normal for all of us. Just like you're saying about peace, like when you're healed enough and can take a look up from your own story, then you're like, wow, how can I make a contribution to others? And we need more and more people, not experts. We need more and more average people suffering with your day-to-day life and experience, and kids and economics and war zones and everything, to be like, you know, I feel well enough to call a circle. I feel well enough to extend a thread. And you only extend it when you're well enough. But that piece, often we don't arrive at it because we feel like we don't have enough to share, or we're not educated, or we're not prepared enough. But I just want to affirm for you, if you're connected and you're called and you know you have a piece for you, one day you'll say, what is the piece I have to offer others? And then I make the connection between piece of thread and the piece. When you extend your piece of the red thread to the greater community, you have a sense of peace within yourself, which can only be felt if you've experienced it. You might, if you've never extended your thread to others besides your own family, you won't know what I'm talking about. It is a piece that is beyond imagining, because you know you're doing what your work is. You're still addressing the suffering, but you're doing it from a peace within that you cultivate, that you know is your natural state. And so that legend is, we live into that our whole life. And then the fourth legend is that we witness each other, that we hear each other's stories, that we tell story and we listen to one another's stories. So these are our legends, and we call them legendary because if you were to live them, it would move a story to a legend. We also call it a legend because we tell it over and over and over. It's also how we do conflict resolution in our community, because we say, am I connected? Am I called? Am I holding my peace? Are they? And am I hearing them, and are they hearing me? It's this perfect tool that works for connecting and also into repair. So to all of you who are here today, who feel called, I just want to extend the red thread over to you. Here you go. And to say that this red thread is the sign of connection, a sign of protection, and an affirmation and awareness that we are all woven together in beauty. Thank you for letting me share that.
I have taken in every single point. So this can be a program actually point by point. So beautiful. And we say in Romania, I know it doesn't make sense in English, but I'm going to translate it literally.
Tell us.
It says, you are a true one.
I love it.
Sister, and that this is a true recognition. I recognize your heart, and I see
Thank you.
That this
Will you say it in your language too? So we can, would you say it 3 times in your mother tongue, so that we who do not understand your language can hear you say it in that way that you would?
Yes, it says, ești adevărată. Ești adevărată. Ești adevărată.
Ești adevărată.
That you speak the truth and you are the truth. You embody the truth. Wow, how beautiful is that? Thank you so much. And for bringing this concrete metaphor of the red thread. We are in Romania a lot to now grow this movement of women's circles and bring more cycle awareness for little girls too. So this metaphor is growing a lot, and I acknowledge you as a pioneer, a wonderful inspiration in this field.
Thank you. It's been an absolute joy to share the red thread. It is a form of communion, and it is, I feel like it's a remembrance of who we've been and who we are. The reality that it showed up in almost every culture that we know of. I mean, it feels like a miracle. And from my ancestral church, the mother, the Blessed Mother, she also, like in the church where I was married, Theotokos, Mother Mary, she is, that's how they call her in Greek, the Theotokos. How do you say, what do you call her in Romanian Orthodox?
Maica Domnului is the mother of the Lord.
Say it again.
Beautiful. It sounds very beautiful in Romanian. Maica Domnului.
Like I love it. That's so beautiful. Well, in our church where we were married, she is in the upper right corner, and she has a red thread. And the legend is that she was weaving the veil of the temple with the red thread when the Archangel Gabriel appeared to her. It's not in the scripture, but it is in the additional stories. And so I went there many years holding the red thread before I ever noticed that she was holding the spindle, because her dress is red too. So it's one of those things where you just be like, okay, I think you called me here. My ancestors want me to pay attention to this. And that's still a part of my life. And of course, I am a child of Earth, but I am also a child of my ancestors.
And you know, actually, I just discovered this symbolism of the thread and of the red thread. You know, the Greek story of Ariadne and Theseus is famous. I just discovered the very old story that was published in an anthology like 100 years ago in English, that was collected from where I was born, which is close to Cucuteni, in that epicenter of the Cucuteni-Tripolia culture. And it's basically the same idea of a woman, but it says simple. It was a simple girl that was called to this big meeting at the palace where the king wanted a wife for the son. And it is again the symbolism of her spindle and her thread, that she is able to, like Ariadne for Theseus, build this thread that will allow to go through a maze of 1,000 rooms to be able to come out. So this is very, very strong. And it says, you know, that knowledge and wisdom is not only from those who are powerful and who are noble and who are in these like royal houses, but it's part of the common people. So that was a
Mm,
beautiful
mhm.
message to unearth.
I love it. I have a couple more minutes. If I could share something with you all about intentional creativity, does that work for you?
Yes, great. You can share on the screen. I'll let you on the screen only.
All right. Give me a moment to do the little technology here. Give me a moment here. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So you asked me to share a little bit about my work. And so I just wanted to share with you, this is one of my paintings. And that has the red thread coming out of the end of the pen for story, and then DNA coming out of the paintbrush, and the color wheel coming into consciousness. And this is called She Writes the Equal Sign. And this is a painting about the artist as the place between energy and matter. And this is a photo of me at a creek that we steward that is a part of our watershed here in Sonoma, California. And this is one of my paintings. And we asked the question, what role does creativity play in the development of consciousness? Every role imaginable. You could think of our imagination as an operating system our consciousness uses to serve us ideas. How can we become more open and attuned to the worlds within us? And again, you see the same pattern here where she has a feather pen with a red thread coming out and a unique symbol. And then we also have the paintbrush with the red thread also illustrating symbols. And so in a way where we illustrate consciousness. This is a painting that's actually done digitally, amazingly, by my teacher, Sue Hoya Sellers. This is a being, an elder, who is moving back into the stardust. So she's part in matter and part in star. And my teacher, Sue, said, I'm always working on a painting, even when I'm not at my easel. And I would say, where? And she says, that is the question. Where is it you are working, thinking, arising from? Who is doing the being? And so when she said where, she was indicating her consciousness. I thought I would share this with you. This is one of my very first intentional creativity paintings at 23 years old. It says, sister, we come from a place in the sea. When the moon is full, we dance to be free. Sue came to my apartment in San Francisco and taught 5 of us. And my topic was naked women dancing under the full moon at the ocean, of course. But this is baby Shiloh, 23 years old. So it's 30 years ago.
You're amazing. What medicine.
Thank you. This painting is called The Creation Song. This is from 2002. I painted this outside. The mountain in the background is the mountain of Alice Walker, the Pulitzer Prize winning author for The Color Purple. And so I painted this painting, and this is creation. So this is Mother singing creation. We are co-creators with creation itself. Each one of us has a song to sing, a painting to paint, a dance to dance, a garden to grow. We must each ask ourselves, what is within me that longs for expression? And how can that expression make a contribution to creation? In each one of us, there is information that is specific and unique. We can access it or not. For many of us, it may be dormant for a long, long time. Creativity invites us to the access point and to return again and again to see what is working within us and how it is organized. Once we gain access to more of who we are and who we can become a cause for positive change in ourselves and our sweet world. Creativity is practiced as a spiritual devotion, and it is a spiritual path of awakening. This is a painting called Cosmic Library. This is symbolic of the masculine and feminine parents, and they are prefiguring what we should be or could be as humans. They're protecting the cosmic library, which is the storehouse of information of the species. So this is like a museum. And then, of course, we have the ocean and the trees in the mountains. So again, the work is illustrating what peace and protection look like in image. This is an image I call Stardust, which is back to the idea of all of us being a part of creation. We aren't just stuck with who we ended up being, we do have a choice. Many of us aren't aware of choice, and if we are, how to get there from where we are in our lives. Power over structures are very invested in humans not having an understanding of how to navigate our own stories and minds. We must become the storytellers of this life to create the world we want, which is, I think, one of the reasons you wanted to bring in so much art into the activism, because we must tell the story. And we have always been doing this until the images of the feminine were largely hidden, but she never went anywhere. We all have access to our consciousness, yet this is not a mental concept. To gain access, you actually need to embody the awareness and practice inhabiting soul space of who you are and the place of who you are. Look around and feel around and discover the hidden information awaiting your awareness. And I'll stop with this image. This is called the Healing Arts Matriarch. And this has to do with the being that is present now and the beings that were in the past, and then the very, very ancient ancestors sort of inside the garment. And then inside of her sleeve, this is an example of how intentional creativity can work toward manifesting what we want. I painted that mountain in her sleeve, and instantly I knew it was our mountain here called Sonoma Mountain. And I stopped the class and I literally drove to the mountain. I found this piece of property and then decided to steward it. And then I painted it. This is an earlier version of the painting. I painted it into her sleeve. And so it was, while I'm painting, I paint the mountain, I feel the mountain, I go to the mountain, I find what I'm supposed to steward. I request to purchase this from these two sisters who have family have owned it for hundreds of years, who took it from indigenous people. And so we say that we are being stewarded instead of being the stewards of, but it all came while I'm in the painting. And so the ideas for peace that we need to cultivate often come from when we're in the creative state. Einstein says the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. This means that the invisible realms that are inside of ourselves and all around us and everyone else is what holds matter in place, in shape, and defines what happens in the places we experience as matter. But we now know there is no actual matter. Everything is in motion. This means if we impact the field, we will impact matter, and it goes both ways. Matter will impact the field will impact matter. This creative has her hand on the pulse, on the equal sign, which is like her ring, is the equal sign between energy and matter. This is the place of causative change and where one thing becomes another. Conscious choice is how she navigates what she transforms. So this gives you an idea, and I'll stop there. There's many more slides. Oh, well, we'll read this one. This is the red thread connection. This is a painting of the ancestral passing on the lineage of the red thread. So I call that the red thread connection. We do have a training called the red thread, and this is one of the paintings that are in it. Here in the community of intentional creativity, we gain access to consciousness through creating. To create with intention and awareness allows us deeper levels of access into the often hidden realms of identity and our relationship with all of life. Each one of us can do this sacred work of curating consciousness, but will we? And if not, why? Creativity is the how of becoming conscious. No dogma, no rules, just awareness and action. So that's a little bit about intentional creativity.
It's so beautiful. Wow, that poetry in art. I mean, I was expecting something like more like catering to the rational mind. But I think that more why I believe art is powerful in storytelling and poetry is because it shortcuts all our rational defenses, what we think it's possible and not, and all the disempowerment that we've taken in to say, wow, there's this wild field where we can all have fun. I think from your cosmic orgasm, I would say that the metaphor that woke me up is the cosmic game. It's so beautiful, and we could bring all these colors. It's time. I think those who feel the call, who are at the fourth stage there of the red thread holding, that feel that even though I'm not completely healed, I'm not completely okay. We don't have to wait for that stage, but I can hold my hands together with other sisters in circle and we co-create, because really it is a big co-creation ground. Then, wow, it's going to be more fun, and we are bound to be successful eventually.
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah. And it's like not waiting for the world to agree with what we agree with within ourselves.
I think you have given us so much medicine. I wanted to say you can end with just one invitation, like a daring invitation for women who think, oh, I'm not an artist, I don't know how to unleash. What would be one encouragement they can take from meeting you? I feel you have given us a lot of medicine. Just wow, it was really beautiful.
Thank you.
Just to be more daring and take that power up.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just tune in to the group here. I would say one invitation is to take your notebook and a pen and just go sit in nature and listen to the mountain or listen to the stone or listen to the river. All of our ancestors pre this 6,000-year cycle were animists. We believed everything was living and had agency and identity. If you will go out and listen, and it isn't so much that you must illustrate what you see, rather just allow the pen to move on the page. We call it metacognitive drawing, and I can share more about that if people want to learn more. But basically where you're connecting and communing with the nature, and then you're just moving the pen on the page without controlling it, without lifting it, even sometimes without looking at it, and just go for like 5 minutes really slow, just listening. And then pause and ask for a message, and you will be utterly astounded at what comes through in that moment. And there's a whole bunch of scientific reasons why it is an astounding moment, because we don't have to talk about that today, but let's just say there's an alignment that happens and you bypass the prefrontal cortex. And so you have access to different parts of consciousness. If you would just begin that way, and then do another illustration where you're actually looking at the shapes and go with shapes instead of trying to duplicate. And then do a third illustration where you're as if you give the river or the mountain or the tree the pen and let them speak. 5 minutes, let them speak an image, and then once again, listen and write what is spoken. This could happen in less than 20 minutes, and you will see something about your creativity that has nothing whatsoever to do with talent. And I really encourage you to do these 3 illustrations and report back to us, because it has the power actually to change people's lives and reconnect them with their own innate sense of creativity, which is where all the solutions are ultimately going to come from, is within our creativity in our interconnected circle.
Thank you so much for the medicine. It's sacred medicine you brought. We are taking homework. My drawing notebook is right here. And we will report back before International Peace Day next year. Thank you so much, Shiloh.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Stop the live screen. And we're saying bye to everyone now.